Take a seat. We'll try to wrap this thing up.
I have a quick question.
Hmm?
Tell me the third thing you're reading it from, the traditions.
That came
From Dick and Peggy
Dick and Peggy, or
Dave
Polly and
Polly?
Dave. They have a whole long thing on traditions.
I got permission.
Yeah, yeah,
Woodstock of AA.
yeah,
And you both
yeah,
are really great.
yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
hey,
And so inspiring and straight to the heart.
God's doing good.
God is really working wonders.
you get tradition.
Okay, we're going to do Tradition 8 now. The AA version is Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. And the Al-Anon tradition is Al-Anon's 12-step work should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. So in our relationship should remain forever a free and giving relationship each to the other. We can jointly employ special workers to help us maintain the chores of the household. And we try to give freely what's been given to us. And I love Diane for free and for fun. I really do. And Chuck C says that you need to do things that people need to have done because they want to. And that's the best motivation I can do. We share the chores around the house. I know that differs for different people, but we share most of that stuff. I mean, we both cook, we both do dishes, we both do laundry, the trash, whatever it is to do. I do all the front yard stuff and the vegetable garden stuff. She takes care of the backyard or flower garden and stuff. We kind of split that stuff up, but we work as a team. We give each other the freedom to do 12-step work. I want to give Diane all the freedom I can to where she can do her 12-step work. And as far as, there's not a whole lot to say about this tradition. Employing special workers, we have a housekeeper that we have that comes in once a week that helps us out. We'll have somebody come do painting around the house or something like that we don't want to do. And to do that, that frees us up to do the stuff that's really important. They say, well, if not, we'll move on. All right. Let's see. Tradition 9. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. And the Al-Anon version is our groups as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. In our relationship ought never be organized, not get organized, not ever be organized, but are flexible and never under the control of one partner. We both came with baggage from our own families about who was supposed to do what and all that stuff. That's a learning process. We got to just remember, easy does it. Live and let live. Rule 62. And if we have responsibilities that we do, we try not to supervise the other person. If I say, Diane, will you handle this? I don't need to be telling her how to do it after I tell her, will you handle this? And I really don't like it when she does the same to me. You got anything on that one?
No, I'm sure I'll hit it later. That was quick.
One other thing I was going to back up on. Where was that? Oh, we were talking about this business of, Diane's not my higher power. I want her in my life, but she's not my higher power. And it reminded me of something I want to share about my beliefs. When I came here and my sponsor told me to get on my knees and ask God to direct my day and get on my knees at night and thank Him for keeping me sober. And I resisted doing that at first, but I did it just to get Him off my back. God wasn't really, I didn't have a relationship with God. But I practiced doing those prayers for a while until I started having some kind of sense of connection. And then I went through a period of time that I really wanted to try and figure out what my higher power was. And, before I thought it was this God in church or the guy big up on a white throne that was throwing lightning bolts at me for doing what I was doing, some preconceived stuff that I dreamed up when I was a kid, I suppose. But I'm convinced that everybody has a higher power. people say, I don't believe in that higher power stuff. I think everybody has a higher power. My sponsor said, what your higher power is whatever you lean on. That's what you lean on, is what your higher power is. And so what I did is I had to, without knowing it, I didn't really realize I was doing this, but I had to find out of all the things that I use for a higher power. You know, I'd use my father. He was a guy that I put him on a pedestal that he didn't want to be on. And my dad failed me as a higher power. I've had my marriage as a higher power, and there were times where I thought our marriage was going to fail. I've had my business as a higher power that I spoke about not too long ago that was so important to me. And by the way, I've been out of that business about 20 years. Most people don't even know what I did for a living, nor they ever asked me what I did. And so when my business was doing great, that's what sustained me. So that was my higher power. I've used a bottle of Crown Royal for a higher power. The worst one I've ever used is me, but I used a sponsor as a higher power, and then he whacked out on me for a while and wasn't available. And so what I had to do was find out all the higher powers, things that I was using as a higher power, all those worldly things had to fail. And when all of those failed, I was left with, there must be this God out there that I can't reach out there and touch, but I just got to have faith and trust in. And that's where the basis of my higher power, how I found God, came to be. So I just want to share that little bit there. Okay.
Tradition 10.
We're going to go on tradition 10, Diane.
That's me. Okay. Tradition 10, and it says the AA's is, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. Al-Anons, as the Al-Anon family groups, have no opinion on outside issues, hence our name ought never be drawn into public controversy. And in the relationship, it says we are each entitled to our own opinion on outside issues. We are careful to publicly respect one another's beliefs, hence our name ought never be drawn into public controversy. And this one, in our little traditions pamphlet, says, there is always great comfort when we are on our way to an Al-Anon meeting to know that the discussion will be centered on one theme, a topic helpful to us in the alcoholic situation. We will be with people who are there for the same reason we are, who will give us moral support and spiritual principles that we can take home and apply to make our lives better. And I just read that little part because for me, it's you know, Mike and I, when we go out in public or something like that, we've never argued in public that I could ever think. We take it home. We don't do it in public if we're going to do it. And we'll usually play the silent game when we do that too. And we just may not just speak for a while and stuff and take it on there. But a couple of times I know in public that he said something or whatever and it's bothered me and I haven't addressed it, and it just eats on me. And eventually, you know, and I've done the same, I'm sure, with him, be it in public or even at home, where I can tell that something's bothering him, or he can tell that something's bothering me. And then we can discuss it and say, hey, this, in public, would you please not make fun of me, or do whatever it is. I can't remember the situation, but I remember going through that, having to have that conversation because he wasn't aware of those things, that it was a controversy for me to bring it up in public or whatever, make fun of. And so there's a lot of things that Mike and I have the same opinions about, and a lot of things we don't. You know, we have a lot of opposite opinions and stuff. But for me, you know, we can discuss it, our differences, or just say, you know, let's agree to disagree. I love that saying that we use, you know, just agree to disagree. We're not going to, we don't see a common thing on this.
Well, you may be right.
You may be right, that's right.
Which I know what that means.
He knows now, so don't tell them what it means when they finally figure it out, because then they use it on you. I get it a lot. So, but for me, I just let him have his opinions and stuff, and I don't try to change his mind. You know, I let him know why something maybe is very important to me, but then we're both free to believe what we have. And maybe he'll give me reasons, to change my mind, and it's things that maybe I hadn't thought about when we have a differing of opinions and stuff. But, I don't ever tell him how to work his program or his opinion, or he needs to call his sponsor. We don't really, I may think it, but I don't tell him. And so for me, we respect each other in that, and we use our sponsors when we having some. I have to use my sponsor a lot, because I remember one time I was early on in the program, and he did something, and I said, okay, it's my time to confront him. I was getting my nerve up, and I actually got angry with him, and all kinds of stuff was happening as I felt free. I had all this freedom. This autonomy sometimes backfired on me. But I luckily called my sponsor, and I got to air, guess what, this da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I'm going to confront him, right? And she's like, well, let's talk about this. And by the end of the conversation, I didn't have to confront him. I had worked it out with my sponsor. Thank God for sponsors. I didn't have to work it out with him and stuff. So certain things I need to take to my sponsor, certain things I don't. But, I can deal with him. But if I'm curious and not sure, I can do that. I'm careful not to gossip about, I'm really careful. Sometimes with a group of people, and all of a sudden the gossip starts, and I hear that, I'm apt to jump in there and agree and be part of the group. But I have to bite my tongue, and sometimes I just have to excuse myself or something, go get a drink or use the restroom or whatever, where I don't get sucked into that, because I can get sucked into all those defects real easily. And so I have to be real careful about that. And as far as, I was thinking that's a lot with Mike, but with my kids, we have all kinds of differing opinions and stuff. And especially during COVID, this was a big one. COVID was really difficult, but my family, being that they lived far away, and we wanted to get together and celebrate a big birthday of his together as family. And so I rented a place in Key Largo, and for a week we had this 4-bedroom place, a condo that we could all stay in. And because it was early on in COVID, just several months in, we didn't go out to eat a lot. We went to the grocery store. We cooked in. We were home, all of us, like 5 of us together. Everybody had their own room, but we spent a lot of time together. We did most everything together. And they and my grandson really have different opinions politically and stuff. We're opposites, and they want to get in and talk about it and all that kind of stuff. And I'm so grateful to this tradition, because I stayed it on early on when we started getting into any of the back and forth, because we were going to be there 5 days, and in the past, I knew it had bothered us or whatever, getting into these discussions with them. And I just said to them, I have no opinion on outside issues. And this family, while we're here, let's just have fun. We're here to have fun and love each other. And if it's something that we disagree, can we just put that aside while we're here together for this week? We had a great time. Of course, they wanted to pick it up here and there, but I would just say, I have no opinion on outside issues. And it was just a freedom for me that I didn't have to try to convince them that they were wrong and I was right, or vice versa, because I wasn't going to change their minds and they weren't going to change mine. But then again, in certain issues, I need to be curious, because maybe they have more information on certain things that I do. And they might change my mind in different things. But I remember that instance, I was so grateful that I didn't have to have a say. There's certain answers that I've found in Al-Anon that I can give you when you're talking to me and just say, God, I don't know. That to me has been a really a thing is, I'm really not sure about that. Or wow, tell me more. I'm curious about that. Just being able to say things like that without getting in an argument and stuff, that was a biggie for me. My dad, one good tradition, I finally realized he was really smart. later on in my life. He was brilliant. He had a lot of good things, but I didn't pay attention because I was a kid. And I remember his thing. He would always say to us, and he would say, a discussion is a sign of intelligence. An argument is a sign of ignorance. And I just thought, what does that mean? I get it now. You know, we can discuss things without arguing. And, you know, there's a difference, such a difference when we just have a discussion. And with that discussion, I think it's really important, at least for me, that in any discussion that I have, before I even have that discussion, that I bring my higher power into that discussion. I found that helps me get through most any discussion I have, is to invite my higher power before I have that. You know, before a sponsee calls me, because there's a lot of opinions I might want to give them, but I don't, thank God. I keep them to myself sometimes, unless I feel like it's higher power. I always grab hold of my higher power, and I do this. I'm a visual person. And when I see it's a sponsee calling or something, I grab hold of my higher power before I pick up the phone. And then, believe it or not, I'm saying things I can't believe I'm saying, you know, or I'm not saying things I can't believe I'm not saying. You know, I feel like the discussion is being, and I listen and I listen and I listen, because I think listening is a skill that I've learned later in my life. To be able to listen, to really listen. And that's where I can form a lot of my opinions, if I have them. And if I don't, I have to see again, use some of those tools. How important is it that I give my you know, information out there, my opinion on stuff? Usually not very important. They don't want to hear it. But for me, I have to do that. Higher power leads me. If I feel something's coming up for me, I might say that. And it's usually just what they need to hear at the time. But I know it's not me. It's my higher power working through me, and I have to be that vessel when I share any discussion really with anybody. I need to do that. Let's see what else I got here. We are careful not to air dirty laundry in public, and careful who I share certain with, and at certain meetings too. I have to be sure, you know, when I'm sharing something that's going on for me or going on with us or my family members, I have to be I have to be able to feel that trust, that it's safe. You know, I can't just say anything to anybody. Today I'm learning to keep a lot of stuff, you know, look at it first before I share it with meetings or with whoever it is. And see how important it really is to share that, because that might not be safe at the time. Let's see. Well, I think that here, just the same thing I was saying, you know, there's conflict and there's controversy that it talks about. Controversy is, I think, when I'm trying to change, and it becomes the argument, and something is often, it's really strong feelings about anger, disapproval, or whatever those, and I feel like I'm going to lose, or I've got to win this. And the conflict, it's okay, you know, I've always said that I didn't like conflict. I was not raised with any conflict, but today it's okay to have some conflict. That's just that we have differing opinions, and that's not so scary anymore. It allows people the freedom to have their own opinions and stuff. So for me today, conflict's okay, but I don't want to get into controversy, because then I don't think that's healthy. So you want to share more on that?
Yeah, I guess the only comment I'd say is, you know, if Diane and I agreed on everything, how would we grow? You know, we wouldn't grow if we didn't disagree about things sometimes. And we both have opinions. We have discussions that remain between us. I have to have her trust and be that we can share things together in confidence. The other thing, one thing I'd like to talk about, I'm on Facebook a lot. Some of you may be on Facebook a lot too, but I'm on Facebook a lot, and I started out to stay connected to my sons in California, but it's kind of grown and mushroomed, and there's good things about Facebook and bad things about Facebook. But I know there's an awful lot of political division in the country, and a lot of that finds its way on the pages of Facebook. And if you're involved in all that, more power to you, go to it. But I made a decision at some point in time. I had to realize that, well, number one, I'm not going to change anybody else's opinion about what I put on Facebook, I don't think. But my primary purpose is to stay sober and help another alcoholic. And so I never, ever comment or put a like or any kind of comment or remark at all on anybody's Facebook page that has to do with anything political, whether I agree with it or not. You know, and I made the decision to do that because I want somebody, my primary purpose is to help somebody else. And I never want to have somebody out there that's a suffering alcoholic saying, well, you know, I'd like to go talk to Mike about this, but he believes in such and such, and I don't believe that way. You know, the first sponsor I had, his and my political beliefs were 100% opposite. I mean, we were about as 180 degrees as you could be, and we got along fine for 10 and a half years. One of my sponsors had strong religious beliefs that I didn't share, but we never argued about that. I have to leave all that out the window, and Facebook is a place where I have to stay completely neutral in order to stay out of those outside issues where somebody will come to me and ask for help. So let's move on to traditional 11.
That's me.
Sparky, go for
And
it.
I wanted to go on top of that, is that, you know, my sponsees have no idea what my political affiliation is or how I vote, or any of that. I've never shared that with them. That's not important. That has nothing to do with Al-Anon, doesn't have anything to the program. I don't put that out anywhere. And, you know, I don't believe that's, because I don't want to turn anybody away. I've been at a meeting before with somebody during the political, you know, votings and all that stuff. Someone made a comment about one of the people that were running as a joke, just a comment thing about that. And for me, I just freaked because I was like, what if there's somebody here in this meeting, a newcomer, that's there for the first time and has that opinion for that person? That's none of our business in a meeting. We don't have opinion on any kind of political thing in a meeting. I don't care if it's before the meeting, I don't care if it's after the meeting. If it's said aloud, it might turn somebody away. I think that's what's so strong about, you know, in meetings, I don't express what religion I go to, what church I go to. I never talk badly about it because I don't want to turn away a newcomer, you know, that might be there, that has a strong affiliation with that. And we just don't know who's there that we might be turning away, and they may be missing the miracle because of something I said because I think my opinion needs to be heard. And so I'm real careful about that too. On Facebook, we just don't do that. Just have no opinion, I think. And so on to tradition 11, which is AA's, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And Al-Anon's is our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, films, and TV. We need guard with special care the anonymity of all AA members. And in our relationship, we individually convey our beliefs and philosophy through attraction rather than promotion. We are each in charge of our own anonymity. We never break one another's anonymity without permission. And for me, that attraction rather than promotion, again, that, you know, the last tradition, I have to be careful. I want to be able to attract rather than make somebody, you know, turn away because of my beliefs or whatever. I have to be the best, you know, they say with the Al-Anon, that they can want to be attracted to. I have to be sure and keep the focus on me when I'm talking. I have to be sure and keep healthy as far as working the steps, stay current in my steps, stay current with my sponsor. And even though, you know, no matter what it is, I've got to be able to just to do, you know, what I feel I'm led to do. So the anonymity part is Mike and I have given each other permission to break our anonymity if we feel that there's somebody, if he feels somebody needs an Al-Anon call or something, to give him my name, and vice versa. He has given me permission to, if there's somebody that's got an alcohol problem, that I can say that he's in the program and give them his phone number and stuff. There's some things I have here that I said that Mary Pearl actually wrote in her traditions thing that says, we follow the golden rule, which is do unto others what you would have them do unto you, and the silver rule, don't do for others what they need to do for themselves. That is interesting, because that's, for me, it just tells me, enabling. I have to be careful, that word of AA, enabling and stuff. We have to be an example of AA and Al-Anon as a coupleship. We don't preach. We go to our own meetings. We let people figure it out. We let go and let God. When we are sharing with people that aren't in the program or something, that are curious, or family members, or even our child that has gone through a lot of ups and downs, they know we're in the program and everything, we don't preach to them about they have to go to AA, that you just need to go to AA, you just need to go to AA, you just need to go to AA. We don't do that. The seed's been planted for them. We're an example for them. Hopefully we're an attraction, and our son has said that. They know where to go, and the ball's in their court and stuff. Our son had gone through one of his things. He was going through some difficult time, and we were together, and he said, "Mom, how do you make amends?" And I was like, "Well, we usually make amends after we've worked steps. We just don't jump in and make amends." And, for me, I said, "Why don't you talk to your dad?" Because he's not in the program or anything like that. And I didn't feel like I told him there's processes and stuff to go through before you make amends. He was attracted, I think, because I'd made amends to him. But he went to his dad. I think he went to you after I talked to him about, how we make amends. And we just share our own experience, strength, and hope. And with the anonymity part, we have to be careful about. I had a sponsee that was well known, and there was other people in meetings that would go up to her and say, "Oh, so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so." And she's like, "Oh, I saw her out," or she was out in public or something and spoke to her and everything. And she was like, "They're breaking my anonymity." And I was just telling people, I always tell newcomers, it doesn't matter who you see here. They're just another Al-Anon person. Please don't take that out to the public. Anonymity is important. People can get fired. They can lose their jobs. There may be violence, whatever it is. We can't break somebody else's anonymity without their permission, if it's okay with them. But we have to be careful, because, there's so many people. Al-Anon, alcoholism affects everybody. It's got no boundaries as far as, this class and that class or whatever. So I have to just be careful to always share, in general ways, not who I see at a meeting. And another thing I can share usually in a meeting, I never say who says what, but I'll share slogans I might hear, or I might share things in the meeting that, really was important to me that I heard. Like, if you heard anything from Danae, you can say, "I guess I heard so-and-so." You can have to say, "Well, Diane says she's going to go get divorced," or whatever. That stuff, everything we hear here, we've got to be careful and keep it in the meetings and stuff. And also at home, there's things going on with us and stuff that we keep at home right now and stuff. We don't have to go out and share it with everybody without talking to each other first. Let's see what else I got in here. I'm going to skip all this stuff. I'll let you, share.
Okay. All right, we come to Tradition 12. And this is another place where AA and Al-Anon agree. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. In our relationship, anonymity, or selflessness, is the spiritual foundation of our way of life as mates, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. The first time I ever had a breach of my anonymity that just it taught me a lot. Actually, it kind of made me mad at first, but it taught me a lot. A guy that worked for me came into work on Monday morning one time, and he said, do you know so-and-so? And I said, yeah. He said, yeah. Well, at first he said, I met a friend of yours over the weekend. He said, you know so-and-so? And I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, he was my wife and I went over to this appliance place because they wanted a refrigerator, and said, somehow they asked where he worked, and he said where he worked, and the guy said, oh, well, you know Mike Allison? He said, yeah, you know. And this guy works for me, said, yeah, he told me all about you cutting your neighbor's trees down and him suing you and all that. This guy told this guy worked for me my whole story about my next door neighbor stuff. And I was a little uncomfortable, about that. But it could have, this guy knew, everybody that I worked around knew I was in AA, so it wasn't a surprise to him that I was in AA or anything. But I thought, well, why did that guy do that? And the reason why, the guy was trying to sell this guy a refrigerator. He was trying to sell a refrigerator, and he thought if he could tell a cute story about somebody, he'd, ingratiate himself with him or something. So I realized, what his motivation was. But I got to keep principles before personalities. And I'll tell you how that works. We sacrifice our personal ambitions for the greater good. The 12 and 12 begins, the spiritual substance of anonymity is sacrifice. Now, Diane and I, as we've talked up here for the last couple of hours, we disagree on a lot of stuff, right? And we love each other, and a lot of times we're on the same rail of the track, but sometimes our relationship gets wider and narrower. Sometimes we grow apart for a while, and then we grow back together. But we disagree on some stuff, and there's just times where we don't like each other. There's just times I don't like her. And it used to be I thought if I didn't like you all the time, I couldn't possibly love you, but that's not how it works. I love her with all my heart, but there's just times we disagree. Now, I want you to know, it's been my experience. I'm really good at taking her inventory. I can take her inventory almost immediately without thought. It's so easy for me to do that, I think, about where she's wrong on something and why she doesn't agree with me. Just saying. And I know that's crazy talk, but I'm telling you, this is what I'm being honest up here.
I've never done that.
I know you hadn't, yeah. But I want you to know, every time that we get into one of these tiffs that lasts sometimes a while, I never get any better taking her inventory. I have never, ever gotten any relief from taking her inventory. All it does is I feel superior or that I'm right, It's only when I take my own inventory. That's the only time I get things that I find a solution. And I've gone through that over and over again. I try to do it in a shorter amount of time now. But if I don't take my own inventory and practice principles over personalities, I never get any better. One thing Diane mentioned that when we disagree on something, that it would be the silent treatment for a while. And sometimes that went on for a long time. And I don't know, Diane can probably tell you exactly where we were, but we were at a conference somewhere. And one of the speakers talked about that they did the silent treatment in their house. And I could see her just well up. And as soon as that speaker sat down, she said, we need to talk. And we got over in the corner of the ballroom in a similar place to this. And she said, we do that, and I don't ever want to do that again. And that got my attention. That silent scorn is something we both used, and I'll speak for me, that we did for a long time, and cut that communication off and cut that spirituality off. And she said, I'm tired of doing that. And when she said that, we both hit a bottom on that, and we work real hard not to do that anymore, because we used to do that for days at a time, and that's a terrible way to try to get through life. I love this woman. I don't want to waste any time, any of her time or our time. I want to have the best life that we can have together. We've really enjoyed being up here today. One thing we didn't talk about is this couples group.
Yeah, I was going to do that.
This started in 1996, by 6 couples, and it was all the guys are AA and the wives were all Al-Anons. And they started a couples group. It was 6 couples, and they met once a month. And we joined this group after one of the couples moved away. We were in it about 20-something years. And we met at somebody's house once a month, and the person that hosted that month, and you only had it at your house twice a year because it was 6 couples, but the people that hosted the event would do the entree for the meal and have the topic for a meeting. And then everybody else would bring the appetizers, the salads, bread, dessert, vegetables, and all that stuff. And we'd get together at 5 o'clock and have happy hour, where we'd have the appetizers and talk amongst ourselves. And then we had a great home-cooked meal at 6 o'clock. And then at 7 o'clock, we had a joint meeting between these 6 couples. And this couples group helped Diane and I in our marriage so much. We talked about the steps of traditions. We talked about kids and grandkids, real stuff that affected all of us. It really enhanced our marriage and our relationship so much, and it lasted a long time. And then COVID hit, and we had to stop meeting, and then we lost one of our members, and a couple of the other members have a lot of health problems, and we just hadn't been able to get it together anymore. And I'm sorry that we can't meet together anymore, but yet that bond that we got from doing that all those years was just a tremendous help to our relationship and to our recoveries. And as somebody was telling me, we were talking earlier between the break, I do my AA program, and Diane gives me the space to do that. Diane does her program of Al-Anon, but we complement each other. We're all in this together. I've seen a division between the relationship of Al-Anon and AA in my area, and that saddens me. When we first came in, we were doing things more together. And I hope that the fellowships can cooperate some more where we can all get together, because we are one big group of people in recovery. And we're really grateful to be here today. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us. Thank you very much. Love you all.
Thank y'all. Yeah.
Can we close with the Lord's Prayer?
Yes, sir.